One day, I was watching TV when the news showed the apartment where my friend used to live. I stared closely, trying to see what had happened. The news said they found the body of a young girl hidden inside the wall of that apartment. When I heard that, I jumped in shock and immediately called my friend. I told her, "The news says they discovered a corpse inside the wall of your apartment." She replied, "Really?" I asked if she still lived there. She told me she had already moved out a long time ago and wasn't living there anymore. I said, "The news says the current tenants were renovating, and that's when they found the body." My friend sounded scared after hearing that. I said, "Yeah, it's terrifying. Someone killed her and hid her in the wall. That's not normal at all." She responded, "That poor girl. But I never noticed anything while I lived there. It's creepy to think I lived in a place with a corpse hidden inside." After we hung up, I kept thinking about it. Just the idea of a body buried inside your own home sends chills down your spine. For my friend, it happened in an apartment she once lived in actually. We even lived there together for a while. If this happened to me, I'd probably have nightmares non-stop. Then suddenly, I realized something felt off. Why did she respond the way she did? At first, it only said they found a body on the wall, and she replied with, "Really?" That meant she supposedly knew nothing at all. But later, she said, "That poor girl. I never told her the victim's gender, or whether it was an adult or a young woman. She shouldn't have known any of that. How did she know it was a girl? Was my friend already aware? Why would she pretend to be ignorant?" The thought gave me goosebumps. I felt a deep chill, because now I was starting to suspect the person who buried the body on the wall might actually be my friend. I have an older brother, for years my senior. When he was a sophomore in college, and I was a freshman in high school, something terrifying happened. One of his friends just disappeared. That summer, my brother went swimming at an amusement park pool with 7 other friends, boys and girls, 8 in total. One evening, around dusk, my brother called home looking nervous. He said, "Something's wrong. He'll be home late this year." Then he hung up. When he got back after midnight, he looked exhausted, as if worn down by a brutal day. Our mother got out of bed, and we asked him what happened. Here's how it went. The pool was about to close, and the group was ready to go home except one friend was missing. They looked everywhere but couldn't find him, calling his house. His family said he hadn't come back. They couldn't believe it. The group started to get really worried and asked the pool staff to help search. The workers combed the whole park, even checked underwater, but there was no sign of their friend. So my brother and the others went to the missing friend's house. It was already 9 p.m. And he still hadn't come home. They reported it to the police. Since there were no leads, my brother came back home for the time being. That's how the whole thing unfolded. After explaining, our mother comforted my brother and went back to bed. But I noticed something strange on my brother's face. A certain hesitation. He hadn't told us everything. Curious and worried, I went to his room and asked what was really going on. My brother and I share a strange sensitivity, some kind of sixth sense. He said, "I don't think this was done by a human. What do you think?" I was silent for a moment, then said, "What you told me sounds weird. Maybe some force beyond human explanation is involved." The next morning, my brother called his missing friend's house again. The family said he still hadn't returned. A week passed with no sign of him. Then my brother decided to tell the missing friend's parents about his feeling it might be something supernatural. He asked me to go with him. So early in the morning, we went to their house. When my brother told the mother what had happened, she suddenly let out a heartbreaking scream and collapsed onto the floor. Then the mother, just a sudden shift in her expression, was sharp and serious. And then she left the room. When the aunt returned, she was holding a photograph and suggested that my brother and I take a look. The feeling I had when I saw that photo, I can never forget it for the rest of my life. The picture had been taken by someone from a magazine. They were covering the amusement park's swimming pool. And by coincidence, it was the day my brother's missing friend had gone to swim there with some others. The pool had 3 diving platforms of different heights. The photograph captured the exact moment the missing friend jumped off one of those platforms. At the time, when the disappearance was reported, authorities began searching. The magazine staff caught word of this and sifted through their photos from that day. hoping to find clues or images that might add to their story. The moment they saw this particular shot, they realized the person, and it was the missing friend. They were so disturbed by what they saw that they gave the photo to my family without hesitation. There was no doubt that the person hiding in the image was our friend. But what made the photo terrifying wasn't just him, it was that he wasn't alone. Behind him, as he fell through the air, an elderly woman with white hair was holding him. Not vaguely or blurred, she was captured there clearly, her arms embracing his body at the precise instant he leapt off the platform. My brother and I stared at the photo, speechless. Horror prick leaped through us like waves of goosebumps. We had no words. That was more than 10 years ago now, and none of us has ever been able to explain how our friend simply vanished into thin air. To this day, no sign of him has ever turned up. Maybe, just maybe, he was taken by whatever that eerie thing was in the photo. Recently, several big cases at work have demanded all my attention, with looming deadlines I can't afford to miss. I've been so busy these days that I practically live in the office, barely even showering properly. One early morning around 5, my co-workers and I borrowed a car. It was just to get home for a bit. When I stepped out of the building and was about to unlock the car, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered, and to my surprise, it was a good friend from school. We hadn't talked in years, not since those days. His voice came through the line, warm but oddly urgent. "John Fu. Long time no see. Sorry for calling so early. You sleeping?" I told him no. How I'd been working non-stop for days, completely exhausted, and was just about to head home. "You should be careful driving in that state," he said. "What if you get into an accident? Maybe take a quick nap first, then go home." I said, "It's not far, just nearby. Don't be reckless. It's really dangerous. Just don't drive." He kept urging me not to. I told and argued with him. I glanced at the clock. My train was about to leave soon, so I told my friend to rest at the office a bit, then take the train home. Then we hung up. Back in the office, lying on the sofa, a sudden chilling thought hit me. That friend, 4 years ago, he died in a car accident. He crashed head-minus on into a truck early one morning and never survived. I checked my phone logs. The call really happened, from an unknown number. Maybe he was calling from the other side, warning me. If he hadn't, who knows what would have happened. After that, I went to visit his grave, thanked him silently for that timely warning. Because of that phone call, I escaped danger that morning. It all happened one morning, with just a week of summer vacation left. I was with Ken Ashes, a good friend I grew up with. We were about to go out for lunch around noon, when suddenly, I spotted Fuko Ko, a mutual friend, across the street. She waved at us and shouted, "What are you and Kenny up to?" I hadn't seen Fuko in a long time, so I was happy to spot her. I called back, "Fuko Ko, long time no see. Want to go eat together now?" I started stepping off the curb, heading toward her. Suddenly, Kenna grabbed my shoulder tightly. Wait, who is that?" I turned to her, puzzled. "What are you talking about? Isn't that Fuko?" Just then, a car shot past right in front of me at a terrifying speed. I jumped back sharply. If Kenna hadn't stopped me by grabbing my shoulder, I would have still been standing there right in the lane. I hadn't felt any car coming at all. In my mind, it seemed to appear out of nowhere, without even honking once. I was shaken, breaking out in a cold sweat. If Kenna hadn't said some strange words and stopped me just in time, I would have been run over. At the same time, Kanna's earlier question echoed in my mind. "Huh? Who's Fukuko?" Ken and I didn't have any mutual friend named Fukuko. Why had I thought the person across the street was our friend? It felt weird. I glanced back and saw the figure still standing there, watching us with a strange expression I couldn't describe. Eeyore had a completely lifeless face, staring at us steadily. Kanna's family has a history of spiritual powers, so because of her constitution, she often encounters strange things. She told me we shouldn't do anything, just pretend we didn't see him and let him stay there alone. The figure kept watching us until we left the street. Later, Kenna told me that thing was some kind of soul reaper, like a grim reaper. This was back when I was in 3rd grade. I lost my mother when I was very young and was raised by my father. I had a shy personality as a kid, and from first grade, I was often ostracized and bullied at school. By third grade, I finally snapped and started refusing to go. My father then temporarily sent me to live with my grandparents in the countryside. It was an extremely remote place, hard to imagine such a spot still exists in Japan. I spent those months living leisurely there. The population was sparse, only 2 or 3 high school students in the whole village. I was the only small kid. At the time, it felt relaxing. I loved insects and often went hunting for bugs. That place was like a treasure trove of critters. About half a year passed. I remember it was August when I met an older sister. She was a beautiful woman with long black hair, probably in her mid-20s to mid-30s. She started the conversation. One day, while I was catching bugs nearby, she approached me and asked, "You're not from this area, are you? Just here for summer break?" I didn't know how to reply. Maybe she noticed, because after glancing at the cage full of bugs I had, she said, "Wow, you caught so many. Can I see?" I showed her the insects and told her lots of things about them. She listened and praised me. That's amazing. I'd never been praised like that, so I was really happy. I told my grandparents about her. Grandpa said, she's probably the daughter of the Yamaguchi family, who comes back in summer. Don't cause her any trouble." Since the village was so tiny, hardly anyone came around. Grandpa and Grandma accepted that and didn't worry much. From then on, I played with that sister. We went bug catching in the fields together, often met by the little Jizo statue near the riverbank. She was a somewhat odd person. When I asked about herself, she skillfully avoided the topic, but she always listened sincerely when I talked. I confided in her about being bullied at school, about my mother being gone, even things I'd never told my grandparents. After hearing my complaints, she always comforted me softly. I often thought, if only she was my mom. I told her that once, too. After hearing it, her expression looked very sad. Not long after I met her, my body began to change. My health slowly got worse. At first, I thought it was a cold, but it wasn't. The fever never came with the usual cold symptoms, just this constant, exhausting weakness. At the time, I couldn't figure out why. But the strangest thing was, even when my body felt so worn out, I still wanted to see my sister. If I couldn't find her, it'd sink into this deep gloom. So, I kept going to the little statue of KSIDRBHA, hoping to find her there. But my health only worsened. My grandparents started to worry. They pleaded with me to stay home and rest. Still, nothing got better. I stubbornly clung to the hope of meeting my sister, complaining constantly. My grandfather finally made a call to the Yamaguchi family. After he hung up, his face went pale with anxiety. He rushed over and asked me sharply, "The old man Yamaguchi said his daughter has to come back this year. Who exactly have you been playing with? What's her name? What kind of person is she?" In that moment of confusion, I realized I didn't even know her name. All I could do was describe her features to Grandpa. Hearing me, he grew more frantic and desperately started making more phone calls. I wondered quietly why Grandpa was so worried. Then I remembered the village was a small, close-knit place where no strangers ever appeared. Everyone knew each other's faces. If an outsider showed up, someone would notice immediately. So having a stranger living there was just impossible. I was too young to fully understand. But after Grandpa's many calls, each over the counter, it became clear there was no woman like her in the village, no one matching her description. From that day on, I was forbidden from going anywhere near where I had met my sister. So I stayed close to home, playing nearby. My body slowly improved, though I was still weak overall. Deep down, I still really wanted to see her. But seeing my grandparents so anxious, I didn't want to add to their worry. One afternoon, while I was looking for bugs behind my grandfather's house, I suddenly heard a woman calling out to me. I turned, and there she was, my sister. She had come again. A rush of happiness filled me as we played and caught bugs together. Oddly, even knowing what Grandpa had told me, I never asked where she came from. That day, my grandparents were nearby, just a little distance away, but they seemed not to notice her at all. That night, the question gnawed at me. I asked them, "Why didn't you say anything when I was playing with my sister during the day?" Their faces darkened with worry. After a long silence, my grandfather finally said, "You weren't alone today. We only saw you walking off alone." Further and further. His words shocked me. They both looked pale and stiff. Grandpa hurriedly called my father, and after the call, my grandmother came to me with urgency. "You need to go back to your father. You can't stay here anymore. When you get home, you must attend school properly." Hearing that, I felt utterly hopeless. Grandma told me a story long ago. Children in this land would mysteriously vanish. They called it kamikakushi, a kind of spiritual abduction by invisible beings. Legion said the fewer friends a child had, the more likely they were to disappear. Even before vanishing, their bodies grew weak from unexplained ailments. "You have to go back to your father," she said. "Don't come back here for now." I thought maybe it was just a tale to encourage me to make more friends once back in the city. Reluctantly, I agreed to return after a week. That entire week, I didn't step outside my grandfather's house. Grandma was restless with worry, and I was miserable without my sister. On the morning I was leaving for the city, I sat alone in the hallway, she looming while waiting for my father. Suddenly, she appeared, my sister, right there in the yard. Though it was strange, I didn't feel afraid. She asked softly, "What's wrong?" I told her I had to leave. She looked sad but said gently, "I think that's for the best, but I'll be cheering for you." From afar, I asked, "If I come back, will I still see you?" She shook her head, sorrow in her eyes, you in her eyes, then walked away, disappearing into the fields. Back in the city, I soon blended into school life. No more bullying. My health improved. Life went back to normal. But after that day, I never saw my sister again. Thinking about it now, having that invisible friend was scary in its own way. To this day, I don't know who she really was. Maybe a ghost, or a messenger of the vanished children, perhaps even some kind of guardian spirit. Not necessarily. This experience was mine firsthand. But there's no doubt it's true because the person who went through it was my younger sister. We're 4 years apart. Back when I was in 5th grade, she was just starting 1st grade. At first, she struggled to make friends and seemed very lonely. I worried she might not want to go to school at all. After a few weeks, she finally made a friend, one of her classmates. A strange kid named Haruko. Haruko was almost invisible. The kind of quiet child you barely notice, even when standing right in front of you. A very reserved boy. His face always wore a blank expression that gave off a shadowy, unreadable vibe. If I had to compare him to something, he was like a porcelain doll. Haruko came over to our house several times, but I never once heard him speak. Even when playing with my sister, he stayed silent, just listening to her talk. At first, I thought he was simply a shy, well-behaved kid. But gradually, something about him began to unsettle me. The way he looked at my sister wasn't friendly. It was strange, almost sinister. I hoped my sister wouldn't get too close to Haruko. A few months later, she made other friends, and naturally, her time spent with Haruko dwindled. Haruko, who had no friends except her, gradually became isolated in class. Then one day, the class hurdle disappeared. Some kid claimed they'd seen Haruko taking it home. Haruko said nothing, just stayed silent. From then on, he earned the nickname Turtle Thief and faced ostracism. He seemed not to care though. In fact, he became more eager to be close to my sister. My sister started to find him annoying and began to avoid him openly. Then suddenly, Haruko invited her to his home. Despite her reluctance, she cowed and shook his persistent invitations and finally went. His apartment was in one of those large, complex buildings. Inside was filthy and rundown, cluttered with garbage everywhere. The air reeked of something awful. When my sister understood the source of the stench, she was shocked. Haruko was urinating directly onto the floor as if it was perfectly normal. He looked at my sister, who was frozen at the doorway, and said, "We're friends, right?" Come every day from now on. My sister didn't hesitate. No, no, we're not friends anymore. And with that, she ran out of his place. The next day at school, she found a shattered turtle on her desk. She knew immediately it was Haruko's doing. From then on, she was afraid of him. She told me that Haruko seemed like a different person after that day. His way of speaking changed, and he started telling others horrible, cruel lies about her, things like her mother made money by having sex with other men. Her father had killed someone and hidden the body at home, and that someday she'd do the same. The implication was deeply disturbing. The H term he used is a childish Japanese euphemism for sexual activity. Because of this harassment and slander, my sister gradually stopped going to school. When our parents found out the truth and reported it to the school, they uncovered unsettling facts about Haruko's home situation. He lived alone. His parents were missing. Soon after, Haruko transferred to another school. No one knew whether he was taken in by relatives or placed in a foster home. My sister eventually returned to school, and the problem seemed resolved, but I'm left with some troubling questions. Can a first grader really live entirely on their own? Where did quiet Haruko even learn such words, and do they fully understand what those words mean? After all, my sister didn't even know. What terrified me most was what my sister told me later. She said Haruko's father had been home that day. She saw him. She said Haruko looked nothing like his dad. His father's face held a faint, unsettling smile the entire time. When Haruko was urinating on the floor, his father said nothing, just stared. Then, when his father saw my sister, he whispered something into Haruko's ear. After that, Haruko turned to my sister and said, "We're friends, right? Come play every day from now on." Hearing this, I broke out in cold sweat. Who was that man? If it was my sister's imagination, and had she not run away, what might have happened? I honestly can't bear to think about it, though it's all happened already. It had been a long time, but even now, I still remember Haruko's expressionless face. This all happened back in June 2 years ago. It was a scorching summer, a muggy night. I had just left school and was on my way home. I arrived at the station closest to the university, planning to take the tram back. I headed toward platform 3. It was just past 9 o'clock, and there were quite a few passengers waiting. Amid the crowd, I spotted a familiar silhouette, a man. As he stood on the platform, I walked up and struck up a conversation. "Hello, are you Guaxiu? Oh, Yuan Si-jun? Is that you?" I recognized him as a friend from middle school. Momentarily caught up in the joy of this chance reunion, the tram arrived. After boarding, we sat side by side, chatting about the gold mine we'd heard about. Once we'd finished talking about that, Guaxiu brought up old middle school memories. We discussed those stories I liked, the tales I often shared with our classmates, and the time I was a cheerleader at the sports festival. These were all things only close middle school friends would know. Strangely enough, the conversation kept circling back to me. Guaxiu was the one sharing much about himself. Time flew by, the front of Lee, and soon it was my stop. As I stood to get off, Guaxiu rose too. "I'm getting off here as well," he said. That's when I felt a little uneasy. After middle school, he'd moved to a different area, and the school district he'd attended was near the station. So why was Guaxiu getting off at the same stop? It felt odd, but I convinced myself maybe he had moved to just hadn't mentioned it. We got off together, and decided to stop at a ramen shop on the way home. After eating, we parted ways. Once I got home, I greeted my parents in the living room, telling them I'd eaten well. My mother asked who I had gone out with today. I told her I'd eaten ramen with a schoolmate. But the problem was I couldn't remember that person's name, no matter how hard I tried. I even recalled having said his name when I first approached him at the station, but it was gone from my mind completely. I just gave a random name to my parents and went back to my room, determined to figure out who had come home with. I grabbed my graduation photo album and looked through faces, trying to match a name. I found his face. Guaxiu. His name was Guaxiu. How could I forget the name of someone I just met? I called a few of my close middle school friends and told them what had happened. Finally, one of them gave me Guxia's phone number. I called him and said it was great running into him today, since we got off at the same station. I wanted to invite him to the gym sometime. But then Guetsayu said, "What are you talking about? I'm still in Chiba. I haven't come back to Tokyo yet." Hearing that, I was shocked. No way? Was he trying to mess with me? But then Guetsayu told me HED also run into a friend last month and had some strange experiences. He suggested we meet up once he was back in Tokyo to talk about it. Before hanging up, Guetsayu sent me a photo from Chiba to prove he wasn't lying. I checked my wallet. The receipt from the ramen shop clearly showed 2 bowls. So the mystery remained. I wondered if my mind was playing tricks on me. If it had ended there, I could have chalked it up to me losing my mind or having some hallucination. But it didn't end there. About 2 weeks later, my younger sister, who was now on summer break from high school, was out shopping near the station close to my university. I was at home studying, around 5 in the afternoon. She came home and knocked on my door. She always loved to show off new stuff she'd bought, so I expected more of the same. But when she came in, she asked me, Hey, did you go to school today?" For some reason, that question gave me goosebumps. I said no. She went on. "Really? I saw you at the station. I even sent you a LINE message." I checked my phone. Sure enough, around 3 o'clock, my sister had sent me a message asking, "Where are you now? Where are you going?" My sister said that as she waited on the platform to go home, she saw me. Just as she was about to say hi, I quickly disappeared into the crowd. So she messaged me to ask where I was headed. 1 week later, just as I was still unsettled over all this, one of the middle school friends had contacted half a month earlier reached out. He sent me a LINE message, "Had a great time today. Let's hang out again soon." At first, I was confused. I hadn't even. After going out and then thinking back on everything that had happened over the past month, a chill ran down my spine. A strong sense of unease settled over me. Later, I called that classmate. He said he had run into my friend on the train home. They hit it off, and even had dinner together near the university station, but I hadn't gone anywhere near that station that day. After Guetsayu returned to Tokyo, we met up. He told me what had happened to him. That day, he also met a classmate at the station, had dinner with him, and within a few days went to sign some papers. But then, just a week later, he got my phone call saying how much fun he had hanging out with me. He thought it was strange. I told Guetsayu about what I had experienced. After hearing my story, we were both terrified. We came to the unsettling conclusion that maybe some entity was secretly living in the city, stealing others' identities. What this thing actually was, we didn't know. Maybe a yokai, a kind of spirit, and now in Laoyan. Who knows, maybe it's still roaming around the city, living using my face. This all happened in the summer of my senior year. By the time I was in my 3rd year, I had already earned most of my credits. So, I only needed to come to school once a week. That day, I went to school and saw some old friends. From a university friend, I heard another strange story. He worked part-time at a bookstore near the station. His routine was to finish around 11 every night and head home. One night, on his way home, he took the subway from the station. To get to the platform, he had to descend a long escalator. It was late and no one else was around. Halfway down the escalator, he saw a woman riding up on the opposite escalator from the platform side. She had long black hair, wore a black dress, and had an average build. Her bangs covered her face, so my friend didn't pay much attention as they passed each other. He took the train home. The next day, he saw the same long haired woman again, passing by just like before. After that, every 2 or 3 days, he would see her again. The woman always appeared alone, no one else was around but him. At first, my friend thought it was just a coincidence, but he started feeling uneasy, fearing it might be something sinister. One night, he saw the woman once more. As usual, she was riding the escalator up from the platform. Normally, my friend avoided looking at her directly, but this time he decided to look carefully, to make sure she wasn't some ghost. He focused on her as she rode the escalator up. Getting closer, he saw she didn't look transparent or blurry, just a normal person. Relieved, he felt his tension ease. His gaze stayed fixed on her as they passed, but suddenly, he nearly jumped out of his skin. Through a gap in her hair, he caught sight of her pale skin, tinged with yellow and covered in cracks. That face was no human's. Their eyes met through the strands of hair. The woman's eyes had no whites, just gray pupils that looked veiled under a thin film. For some reason, my friend cowled and looked away. His heart pounded wildly, thumping in his chest like it wanted to burst out. Since my friend was going down while she was going up, once they had a bit of distance, he turned around to keep watching. He saw her neck slowly turn toward him. What was terrifying was that her body faced forward, but her head spun 180 degrees backward, staring at him. Then her lips curled up into a wide smile, revealing teeth stained with blood. Her cracked, dry, ghostly pale skin framed that blood-minus red mouth face sight so horrifying it twisted his stomach. At that moment, my friend was frozen, unable to scream or look away. He just stared, paralyzed with fear, and tears started streaming down his face. The woman spoke in a strange tone and at a rapid pace. Well, maybe her voice was sped up many times over. She uttered incomprehensible words. As she spoke, drops of blood splattered from her mouth. The strange phrases repeated over and over. Hearing those words gave my friend an dizzy, Carmine's sick feeling inside his head, buzzing and faint. Still, he held and break his gaze. Time seemed to stop. Suddenly, he fell over the escalator and reached the bottom, but he hadn't noticed. His vision shifted. Reflexively, he looked up and the woman was gone. After that, his memory gets hazy. He only recalls being cared for by station staff and eventually making it home safely. The whole story sent a fresh shiver down my spine. What was that creature? What else was lurking unseen in this city? Wearing someone else's face? The next day, my friend told me about it. Since it happened at a station she sometimes went to, it made her uneasy. But after hearing the story, I forgot all about it the very next day. That is,